last night before departure, Jimin and Jungkook's moment of silence was the most attention-grabbing. Crying face sparkles it was supposed to be a normal night. No big camera highlights, no grand stage, no deafening army cheers. But it was precisely on that last night before departure that BTS's Jimin and Jungkook created one of the quietest, and perhaps most emotional, moments that is now the subject of heated discussion among fans around the world. In the midst of hectic schedules, great pressures, and decisive phases of life, their silence speaks much louder than the thousands of words that have ever been spoken on stage. A nearby source revealed that the evening took place without any big plans. There was no celebration, no official agenda announced to the public. Just two people who have grown up together for more than a decade, sitting in the same space, realizing that tomorrow everything will change again. Departure is not just about changing places, but about distance, time, and feelings that must be held without guarantee when they can be released again, according to an internal report that was later leaked to the fan community. The atmosphere of the evening felt different from the start. Jimin is known for keeping the room energized with his smiles and jokes, while Jungkook is often the center of warmth with his innocent and spontaneous mannerisms. That night, however, both were much calmer. Not moody, not dramatic, just silent. A silence that feels heavy, as if each one was composing a word in their hearts, but chose not to say it. Some of the staff who happened to be on site mentioned that Jimin and Jungkook spent a long time without talking. They sat close together, sometimes glancing at each other, then again lowered their heads. No tears fell, no long hugs that are commonly seen in moments of separation. It is precisely that tranquility that makes anyone who sees it feel suffocated. As if there was an unspoken agreement between them that the evening needed no explanation. For ARMY, this moment of silence felt much more touching than a farewell speech or an emotional post on social media. In the expression-filled K-pop culture, silence is often the most honest language. And Jimin and Jungkook, with all their long histories, seem to understand that very well. They do not need to explain anything to the public because the feeling belongs only to the two of them. Since BTS's debut, Jimin and Jungkook's relationship has always attracted attention. Not only because of their closeness in front of the camera, but because of the way they read each other without words. Many fans noticed that at key moments, the duo, on the contrary, became more reserved. This last night before departure became the most vivid example. No shared photo uploads, no long captions, no cryptic messages that used to provoke speculation. There is only silence, and that is precisely what makes this moment feel so real. One of the small details that later went viral in the ARMY community was Jungkook's habit of playing with his fingers when he was holding back his feelings. That night, according to witnesses, he did the same. Jimin noticed her at a glance, then without saying anything, just shifted his sitting position a little closer. No dramatic touches, just a narrow distance. For those familiar with the dynamics of both, that simple gesture is enough to explain everything. The intended departure itself carries great significance. This is not just an ordinary journey, but a new phase that demands maturity, mental resilience, and acceptance of change. For Jimin and Jungkook, who for many years were almost inseparable in various activities, this reality was certainly not easy. But instead of openly showing grief, they choose the quietest way to deal with it. Cultural psychologists who observe the K-pop phenomenon say that moments like these often make more of an impression because they feel authentic. When idols choose to remain silent while the public waits for a big reaction, it shows the depth of a relationship that doesn't need external validation, one observer said. This statement seemed to reinforce the feelings of the ARMY, who from the beginning felt that the night was not for public consumption, but for their own hearts. Shortly after the news of last night spread, social media was filled with emotional reactions. Many fans admitted that they actually cried after reading the report about the silence. Not because there is a tragedy, but because they feel a sincerity that is rarely seen. There is nothing more painful and beautiful than a farewell without words, wrote an ARMY on the global community platform. Interestingly, neither Jimin nor Jungkook ever directly confirmed the details of the night. They continue their respective activities with great professionalism, as if nothing needed to be explained. But for sensitive fans, small changes in their expressions and body language after the departure served as a hint that the evening did leave a deep emotional imprint. A few days later, Jimin was seen more often silent in his short broadcasts, while Jungkook chose to speak as necessary. No complaints, no excessive outpouring of the heart. It was precisely that attitude that made the public even more convinced that something worthwhile had happened, something too personal to unravel in front of the cameras. In an entertainment industry that often demands everything seen and heard, Jimin and Jungkook's choice to keep this moment in silence feels like a subtle resistance. They remind that not all emotions need to be shown, and not all stories need to have a complete narrative. Sometimes, the most touching is precisely the part that is never spoken. The last night before the departure was now a kind of little legend among the army. Not because of the drama, but because of its simplicity. Two friends, two traveling companions, two souls who have gone through so much together, choose silence to honor each other's feelings. No promises are spoken, but that is precisely why they are felt more strongly. And maybe, somewhere away from the spotlight, Jimin and Jungkook still remember that night as a moment where they didn't need to be idols, didn't need to be symbols of anything. They just be themselves, sit in silence, let the feelings flow without having to be named. The silence of the night seemed to continue to resonate even after the day of departure had actually arrived. Many thought that the moment would stop as a short story, just a whisper among the staff or a passing snippet of a rumor. But in reality, the impact is actually felt more widely. As time goes on, ARMY begins to realize that last night wasn't just about a physical breakup, but rather about the rarely highlighted emotional maturation phase of Jimin and Jungkook's figures. On the morning after the silent night, the atmosphere around the two looked as professional as ever. There were no signs of chaos, no exaggerated facial expressions that indicated deep sadness. But it was precisely there that many fans felt that something was changing. Jimin's smile looked calmer, not the bright smile full of energy as usual, but a smile that contained acceptance. Jungkook also looks more controlled, as if his every move has been carefully thought out. For those who have been following BTS's journey for a long time, this small change feels very significant. Some observers even said that the last night before departure was the point where Jimin and Jungkook's relationship entered a more mature dimension. It is no longer about the togetherness that is always shown, but about the trust that does not need to be shown. They do not need an oral appointment, because the long journey they have passed together is already evidence in itself. In that silence, there seems to be an understanding that distance and time are not threats, but part of a process that must be lived. ARMY's reaction evolved into a deeper reflection. Many began to share personal experiences about parting without words, about the moment when silence became precisely the most truthful language. The story of Jimin and Jungkook on that night felt close to the real life of the fans, making them feel that the idol who had been looking perfect was also facing the same human emotions. Not a few claim to find strength in the way they both deal with the situation calmly and with dignity, and for ARMY, this moment of silence between Jimin and Jungkook will always be remembered not as a sad breakup, but as a reminder that love, friendship, and a strong bond don't always need words. Sometimes, it is enough just to sit together in silence, everything is said.